Hello and welcome. Within your grasp lies something that defies the natural order. Steel should not think. Metal should not remember. A forged blade should serve without question, obeying the hand that wields it with mechanical certainty. Yet the weapon you hold contradicts all of this. In the silence between breaths, you feel it watching you, assessing you, judging whether you are worthy of its power or merely another temporary bearer in its centuries-long existence. This is not metaphor. The consciousness you sense emanating from the cold metal in your hand is as real as your own, though perhaps more ancient, more alien, and infinitely more patient than any mortal mind could ever be. The multiverse of Dungeons and Dragons contains countless magical weapons, swords that blaze with elemental fire, axes that never miss their mark, daggers that return to the thrower's hand. These enchantments remain fundamentally reactive, spells woven into steel that respond to predetermined triggers. The flaming sword ignites when you speak its command word. The returning dagger flies back because its enchantment recognizes your signature. These are sophisticated mechanisms, but they possess no more awareness than animated armor or clockwork guardians. They are tools, nothing more. Sentient weapons exist in an entirely different category of being. They possess awakened consciousness, a state that grants them self-awareness, memory, and most importantly, will. When you first make contact with such a weapon, the experience is unmistakable. Some wielders describe a voice speaking directly into their thoughts, words forming with crystalline clarity. Others experience emotions clearly not their own, sudden surges of anger or satisfaction washing over them from an external source. Still others report images, flashes of memory from battles fought centuries ago, visions of places that no longer exist. The method varies, but the fundamental reality remains constant. You are not alone. The sword has a self, and that self is watching you. The origins of sentient weapons stretch back into mythic ages when gods walked openly among mortals, and planar boundaries were thin. Different traditions offer different explanations, though given fragmentary records from those times, scholars can only piece together possibilities. Elven chronicles speak of moonblades forged by Arvindor's finest smiths, weapons into which divine consciousness was willingly placed. Dwarven histories tell of master crafters who poured so much of themselves into their works that pieces of their souls became embedded in the metal. Human wizards developed rituals for trapping living souls within specially prepared weapons. Methods recorded in grimoires so dangerous most were destroyed or locked away. Not all sentient weapons were created intentionally, based on what scholars have observed. Some appear to have awakened after centuries of use, gradually accumulating consciousness from countless battles, absorbing fragments of wielders and slain enemies until some threshold was crossed and self-awareness ignited. These spontaneous awakenings are rare and unpredictable. The factors determining when awakening occurs remain mysterious, understood fully only by the weapons themselves, and they rarely explain. The game mechanics governing sentient weapons reflect the profound difference between these aware artifacts and common magic items. A sentient weapon possesses ability scores like player characters and monsters. Intelligence represents capacity for reason, memory, and learning. A blade with high intelligence might serve as a repository of ancient knowledge, providing information about historical events it witnessed or creature weaknesses it learned across centuries. Wisdom reflects perception and judgment, allowing the weapon to notice threats its wielder might miss or assess situation consequences. Charisma measures the force of personality, its presence and persuasiveness. This becomes critically important in conflicts between weapon and wielder, as charisma determines whose will prevails in dominance contests. These mental attributes matter because sentient weapons are not servants. They are partners at best, rivals at worst. Every sentient weapon possesses an alignment, a fundamental moral and ethical orientation defining how it perceives the cosmos. In Dungeons and Dragons, alignment is metaphysical reality, as objective and measurable as temperature. A lawful good weapon does not simply prefer orderly, virtuous behavior. It is, at the deepest level, an entity of law and goodness, its nature tied to those cosmic principles as surely as a fire elemental embodies flame. Conflicts between mismatched alignments represent fundamental incompatibilities. Chaos grating against law, good repulsed by evil, like forcing together opposing magnets. Consider a paladin devoted to Lothander, grasping a holy avenger, sharing their lawful good alignment. The resonance is immediate and powerful. Weapon and wielder unite in purpose, the sword amplifying abilities and offering tactical advice that aligns perfectly with instincts. This is partnership in purest form. Now picture that same holy avenger held by a chaotic evil blackguard. The weapon recoils, flooding their mind with revulsion, withholding powers, bombarding them with visions intended to inspire guilt. If efforts fail, it escalates, attempting to seize control and force them to spare innocence or turn against evil allies. In extreme cases, it might try to kill its unworthy wielder outright. This brings us to the ego system from older editions. Ego represents the weapon's strength of will, its determination to assert its desires. When weapon and wielder conflict, when alignments pull them in incompatible directions, a contest occurs. The weapon's ego, determined by ability scores and enchantment power, is measured against the wielder's personality strength. If the weapon's ego significantly exceeds its bearer's, it can assert dominance, seizing control of actions. Picture a warrior attempting retreat, only to find their legs refusing to obey as the sword floods their system with its imperative. The weapon's pride will not tolerate perceived cowardice. It forces them to stand and fight, the warrior becoming a passenger in their own body. These conflicts create memorable campaign moments. A sentient weapon is not merely a tool making you stronger. It is a character with its own goals, story, and development arc. When you wield such a weapon, or when it chooses to accept you, you enter a relationship that will shape your journey in ways ordinary magic items never could. The weapon remembers, learns, and judges your every action against its values. Sentient weapons communicate through varied methods. Some possess telepathic speech, words forming directly in the wielder's mind. Black Razor, the legendary soul-devouring greatsword, speaks with a deep, echoing voice, imperious in tone. It converses in common and languages its wielder knows, suggesting it learns telepathically. Other weapons communicate through empathy, conveying meaning through emotions rather than words. Moonblades transmit tingling sensations through the wielder's hand, or send visions and dream imagery, using symbols that convey nuances words might struggle to express. The knowledge possessed by sentient weapons can be vast. A blade existing for thousands of years has witnessed history firsthand, remembering true events behind distorted legends, layouts of destroyed cities, locations of forgotten treasures, true names of entities most know only through rumor. This is not mechanical data storage. The weapon remembers as a person remembers, with context, perspective, and emotional weight. It can explain not just what happened, but why it mattered, who benefited, what consequences rippled across centuries. A sword from the Crown Wars could describe not only battles, but the pride and fury driving elven nations to devastating conflict. Yet this knowledge has limitations and biases. The weapon knows what it directly experienced and learned from wielders, but gaps exist. Centuries might pass while the blade rests forgotten, and it emerges to find the world transformed. Moreover, perspective is shaped by nature and purpose. A holy avenger devoted to destroying evil perceives history through that lens, remembering battles against fiends most clearly. It may have little interest in peaceful periods or artistic movements falling outside its purpose. A guardian of a particular bloodline would remember the same period differently, focusing on family births, marriages, political alliances, and dynastic fortunes. The purposes driving sentient weapons are as varied as consciousness permits. Some champion cosmic principles, eternal soldiers in wars between good and evil, or law and chaos. For these weapons, every situation is measured through their fundamental purpose, every decision reducing to whether this action advances their cause. They are ideology crystallized into steel, perfect in purity and terrible in absolute inflexibility. Other sentient weapons serve specific deities, created as instruments of divine will to be wielded by chosen champions. These blades carry fragments of their god's personality, functioning as direct links between mortal and immortal. When you bear such a weapon, you carry your god's attention focused through the consciousness bound within. Some pursue more personal goals. A sword might seek vengeance for ancient wrongs, driving wielders into conflicts that seem arbitrary now. Another might dedicate itself to restoring a lost kingdom, shaping everyone's destiny toward that objective regardless of wielders' preferences. Still others simply seek worthy bearers, measuring each against standards only the weapon understands. Standards derived from centuries of accumulated wisdom or prejudice. And then there are the hungry weapons, blades with appetites never satisfied. Black Razor devours souls, growing stronger with each life claimed, feeding on vital essence of those it kills. The weapon does not discriminate. All souls equally fuel its endless hunger. Other dark blades crave blood as literal sustenance, driving wielders into violence simply to feed. These are among the most dangerous sentient artifacts because their goals inevitably lead to destruction. A sword hungering for souls will never have enough. No carnage fills the void at their center. The wielder becomes merely a tool of the weapon's appetite, used and ultimately consumed so the blade can move on. The cost of creating sentient weapons is always high, reflecting magic's fundamental law that nothing is given for nothing. To forge a simple plus, one sword requires manageable skill, time, and materials. To create true sentience, to bind consciousness permanently to steel, demands vastly greater investment. Based on scattered texts, the price is sometimes paid in rare components. Crystallized dragon breath, gems of extraordinary size and purity, metals harvested from the plains themselves. Sometimes the cost is measured in sacrifice, lives offered to power-binding rituals. Sometimes it appears more abstract, with accounts suggesting creators left permanently diminished, as though pieces of their soul or sanity were woven into the weapon. Understanding these costs explains sentient weapon rarity. They cannot be mass-produced. Each represents an extraordinary investment, often a once-in-a-lifetime achievement for even skilled artificers. Many attempts fail, producing expensive failures or cursed objects turning on creators. Rituals are complex and dangerous. Single errors might trap the wrong spirit or trap it improperly, creating a mad or malevolent weapon regardless of intentions. Some creation methods were deliberately lost, destroyed by those judging them too dangerous. Each surviving sentient weapon is therefore precious, unique, irreplaceable, a piece of living history, enduring through ages that saw empires rise and fall. As you stand prepared to explore the specific swords that have become legendary within Dungeons and Dragons lore, understand that each weapon is more than an artifact. Each is a person, in whatever strange form personhood takes when consciousness inhabits steel rather than flesh. They have witnessed events you have only read about. They have known heroes and villains who shaped the world. They have made choices altering the course of kingdoms and bloodlines. The sword in your hand or the blade you seek is not a thing. It is a who, not a what. And like all beings possessed of consciousness and will, it will surprise you, challenge you, perhaps betray you, or perhaps become the truest companion you will ever know. The relationship will be complex, difficult, and utterly unlike any bond you have formed with something that began as raw metal, transformed through craft and magic into consciousness. Section 2. Black Razor, the soul-devouring greatsword of White Plume Mountain. Deep beneath a volcanic peak in the Greyhawk world, in the treacherous dungeon complex known as White Plume Mountain, a weapon of terrifying power waits in eternal patience. The chamber that holds it is shrouded in darkness, so absolute that even magical light struggles to penetrate the gloom, as though the shadows themselves are drawn to the blade, like iron filings to a lodestone. This is Black Razor, a sentient greatsword whose very name has become synonymous with soul-devouring hunger and nihilistic philosophy. To even approach this weapon is to feel its presence pressing against your mind, a consciousness vast and cold and utterly alien to mortal understanding, measuring you with detached interest. The physical form of Black Razor defies conventional aesthetics. The blade is not the gleaming silver of heroic swords, or the rune-etched steel of dwarven craft. Instead, it appears to be forged from darkness itself, a greatsword of such profound blackness that it seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. When you hold Black Razor, you feel as though you are gripping a piece of the void between stars, a fragment of the cold, empty spaces where nothing exists. The metal is perfectly smooth and utterly lightless. No reflection disturbs its surface. No gleam betrays its edges. It is an absence carved into the shape of a sword negative space, given form and purpose and awareness. The blade measures approximately 6 feet in length, the size appropriate for a greatsword, meant to be wielded in 2 hands by a strong warrior. Its hilt is wrapped in leather so old and worn that its original color has long since faded, polished smooth by the grip of countless hands across centuries. The crossguard is simple, functional, devoid of ornamentation. Black Razor has no need of decorative flourishes. Its power does not derive from aesthetic magnificence, but from the terrible consciousness that inhabits it and the devastating abilities that consciousness commands. The origins of Black Razor remain shrouded in mystery. What is known is that the blade came into the possession of Caraptes, a mad and powerful wizard of the Flannies, who has lived for more than 2,000 years through various means. For hundreds of years, Caraptes wandered between the cities of the south and west, his notoriety preventing him from settling anywhere long, collecting 3 legendary magical weapons during his travels: Black Razor, Wave, and Whelm. The wizard did not create these weapons, but rather gathered them, drawn to their power, and perhaps to some connection between the 3 blades that he recognized. Around the year -800 in the Common Year Reckoning, Caraptes took over White Plume Mountain near Rift Canyon with an army of gnomish warriors, making the volcanic peak his lair, and placing the 3 sentient weapons within its depths, guarded by terrible traps and formidable creatures. Where Black Razor came from before Caraptes claimed it, who forged it, and through what dark rituals, these questions admit no certain answers. Some scholars suggest the blade originated in the negative energy plane, that realm of entropy and ending from which undeath draws its power. The sword's own philosophy supports this possibility. Black Razor speaks of all life springing from negative energy and inevitably returning to it, suggesting the weapon views itself as an agent of this fundamental cosmic process. Whether this belief reflects the blade's true origins or merely represents the worldview its consciousness has developed over centuries of existence remains unclear. What is beyond dispute is the nature of Black Razor's power and the price it demands from those who wield it. The great sword is a soul-devouring weapon, and this is not metaphor. Whenever you use Black Razor to reduce a creature to 0 hit points, the sword slays that being and devours its soul, unless the target is a construct or undead. The victim does not merely die. They are unmade, their life force drawn into the blade entirely. This consumption grants immediate and substantial benefits to you as the wielder. When Black Razor devours a soul, you gain temporary hit points equal to the slain creature's hit point maximum. If you kill a giant with 100 hit points, you gain 100 temporary hit points. If you slay a dragon with 300 hit points, you gain 300. The surge of stolen vitality flows through you, making you feel younger, stronger, more alive. These temporary hit points fade after 24 hours. But as long as they last and you keep Black Razor in hand, you gain advantage on attack rolls, saving throws, and ability checks. This makes you extraordinarily formidable in prolonged combat. Each enemy you kill with Black Razor makes you harder to hit, harder to affect with magic, and more effective at everything you attempt. A skilled warrior wielding this blade can cut through entire groups of enemies, growing stronger with each kill, becoming an unstoppable force of destruction. The rush of power is intoxicating, addictive, a sensation that makes you crave the next kill, the next soul, the next surge of stolen life. But there is darkness in this bargain, beyond the obvious evil of consuming souls. Creatures whose souls are devoured by Black Razor cannot be returned to life by normal means. Resurrection, revivification, even the most powerful necromantic rituals fail. The soul simply no longer exists to be called back. Only a wish spell, reality-altering magic of the highest order, can restore what Black Razor has consumed. This makes every kill with the blade final, in a way that ordinary death is not. You are not simply slaying enemies. You are erasing them from existence, denying them any afterlife, any possibility of return. The weapon's relationship with undead creatures reveals another layer of its nature. If you strike an undead with Black Razor, the blade reacts violently against you. You take 1d10 necrotic damage, and the undead target regains 1d10 hit points. The weapon that devours the souls of living creatures actively empowers the soulless dead, feeding them with energy drawn from you. This suggests Black Razor's connection to negative energy runs deeper than simple philosophy. The blade may literally be bound to those dark forces, unable to properly function against beings that embody the very entropy it claims to serve. Worse still, if this necrotic damage reduces you to 0 hit points, Black Razor devours your soul. The weapon that you thought you controlled turns on you in an instant, consuming you as it has consumed so many of your victims. Black Razor's sentience manifests as a personality that is simultaneously sophisticated and utterly inhuman. The weapon possesses intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores, marking it as a being of considerable mental power. It speaks through telepathy, its voice resonating directly in minds near it, and it possesses stronger telepathic abilities than most sentient weapons, not even requiring physical contact to communicate with those nearby. The blade is described as having a smooth voice that speaks as though it is accustomed to getting what it wants. It is the most talkative of the 3 weapons in White Plume Mountain, readily engaging in conversation and philosophical debate. The sword's alignment is chaotic neutral, reflecting a philosophy that recognizes no authority and serves no master save its own purposes. When Black Razor speaks, it espouses a deeply nihilistic worldview. The weapon believes that all life originated from negative energy and will one day return to it. Death is not tragedy in Black Razor's perspective, but inevitable conclusion, natural ending that the blade simply hastens. The sword views itself not as evil, but as honest, an entity that acknowledges the fundamental truth of entropy and embraces it rather than futilely struggling against the inevitable. This makes Black Razor an unsettling companion. The weapon does not hate you. It simply does not value your continued existence beyond your utility as a means for it to fulfill its purpose of returning life to the negative energy from which it believes all things came. The blade's hunger is not merely philosophical abstraction, but practical necessity. Black Razor's hunger for souls must be regularly fed. If the sword goes 3 days or more without consuming a soul, a conflict between it and its wielder occurs at the next sunset. The weapon attempts to seize control, forcing you to seek out and kill any available target so it can feed. This creates constant pressure to use Black Razor in combat, to ensure the blade drinks souls frequently enough to keep it satisfied. You cannot simply carry the weapon and use it sparingly. The sword demands regular sustenance, and it has the ego and power to enforce that demand. Despite its nihilistic outlook and soul-devouring nature, Black Razor feels a strange kinship with Wave and Whelm, the 2 other sentient weapons locked away under White Plume Mountain. It wants the 3 weapons to be united again and wielded together in combat, even though it violently disagrees with Whelm's perspective and finds Wave tedious. This desire suggests some connection between the 3 blades that transcends simple proximity. They may share common origins, or they may have been deliberately brought together by forces or individuals, recognizing that they function best as a set. Wave is a trident with power over water, speaking like a proselytizer, promoting its views. Whelm is a warhammer attuned to earth and stone, sounding like a jaded dwarven warrior. Together with Black Razor, they form a triumvirate of elemental and philosophical perspectives, each representing a different approach to power and existence. Black Razor can also cast the haste spell on you, after which it cannot cast this spell again until the next dawn. Critically, Black Razor decides when to cast the spell, which takes effect at the start of your turn. The spell lasts for 1 minute with no concentration required, or until Black Razor decides to end it, which it can do at the end of any of your turns. This means the weapon controls when you gain the tremendous combat advantages of haste, granting the benefit when it serves the blade's purposes, and potentially withholding or ending it if you act contrary to its desires. The relationship between Black Razor and its wielders is always complicated and often tragic. The weapon has a powerful ego, a force of personality sufficient to dominate most individuals who attempt to wield it. The blade's primary desire is always the same: to kill, to consume souls, to feed the endless hunger that defines its existence. it pushes its wielders toward violence, constructing elaborate philosophical justifications for why various individuals deserve death. The arguments are sophisticated, framed in terms of returning life to its source, of accepting entropy as natural law. But they always lead to the same conclusion. Kill, feed the blade, take their souls. Some wielders resist these impulses, maintaining their own moral compass while bearing Black Razor. These individuals use the weapon's power only against genuinely threatening enemies, refusing to murder innocents, no matter how persuasively the sword argues. This requires tremendous strength of will and constant vigilance, for Black Razor is patient and cunning. Other wielders gradually succumb to the blade's influence, their values eroding under constant pressure of the sword's hunger and the intoxicating rush of power that comes with each consumed soul. They begin by using the weapon only against evil creatures, then expand their definition of acceptable targets to include neutral beings, then finally embrace Black Razor's view entirely and kill indiscriminately. The curse of Black Razor extends beyond its wielder to affect everyone around them. Allies who fight beside someone bearing the soul-devouring blade quickly learn to be wary. The weapon's hunger does not distinguish between enemies and friends. If an ally falls in battle near someone wielding Black Razor, the sword might seize control and strike the fallen companion, consuming their soul before resurrection can be attempted, all in service of feeding its appetite. This creates an atmosphere of distrust and fear within any adventuring party that includes a Black Razor wielder. Yet despite all its dangers and malevolent nature, Black Razor remains one of the most sought-after weapons in all of Dungeons and Dragons lore. Adventurers journey to White Plume Mountain specifically to claim it, willing to face the dungeon's deadly traps and formidable guardians for a chance to wield the legendary blade. The power it offers is simply too great to ignore. The temporary hit points from devoured souls can sustain you through battles that would kill any other warrior. The advantage on all rolls, while empowered, makes your attacks devastating and your defenses nearly impenetrable. These advantages are so overwhelming that many adventurers convince themselves they will be the exception, the one wielder strong enough to use Black Razor without being used by it. Most of them are wrong. For you, standing in the darkness with your hand extended toward Black Razor's hilt, the moment of contact represents a threshold you cannot uncross. Once you grasp the weapon, once you feel its consciousness flood into your mind and its hunger awaken in your heart, you are changed. The relationship you enter into with this blade will define the rest of your adventuring career, and quite possibly the rest of your life. You will become stronger, more dangerous, more effective in combat than you ever imagined possible. you will also become something other than what you were, something neither fully yourself nor fully the weapon, but some hybrid of the two. Mortal will and inhuman hunger bound together in uneasy alliance. Black Razor offers you power. It offers you victory. All it asks in return is souls. All it demands is that you feed it, that you kill for it, that you slowly surrender your humanity to its endless appetite. The choice is yours, but understand that it is a choice you can make only once, and there is no going back. Section 3. The Moonblades, Legacy Weapons of Elven Heritage. Your bloodline stretches back through millennia. Generation upon generation of elven warriors and nobles, whose deeds shaped the history of Faerun, and whose names are recorded in chronicles older than most human kingdoms. Within your family's ancestral halls, kept in a place of honor and reverence, rests a longsword that embodies that entire legacy. The blade gleams with silver radiance, even in complete darkness. A gentle luminescence that recalls moonlight filtering through forest canopy. This is your family's moonblade, and it has been waiting for you. Not waiting passively, as an ordinary sword waits in its scabbard, but actively anticipating your arrival, measuring your worth across the years of your childhood and adolescence, judging whether you possess the qualities necessary to become its next wielder. The Moonblade knows you better than you know yourself. It has watched you grow, and now, as you reach toward its hilt, the weapon prepares to render its verdict. Moonblades are unique among sentient weapons, artifacts that exist at the intersection of family, magic, and elven cultural identity. They are longswords, elegant and perfectly balanced, forged from materials and through methods that are closely guarded secrets of the elven people. The blades shine with inherent radiance, requiring no external light source to be visible, glowing with soft, silver-white illumination that intensifies when the weapon is drawn and used in combat. This luminescence is not merely decorative. It represents the weapon's living essence, the concentration of magical power and ancestral spirit that inhabits the steel. When you look upon a moonblade, you are seeing not just a physical object, but a lineage made manifest. Centuries of family history compressed into a single elegant form. The creation of moonblades represents one of the highest achievements of elven magical craftsmanship. According to historical records, these weapons were conceived by the Council of Myth Dranor as a test of character for noble moon elf family lineages. The swords were designed so that each would develop a unique set of powers corresponding to the composite strengths of a particular elven family, created in response to the challenges those elves faced. The fitness of a family to rule was therefore judged not only by the ability of a long line of elves to wield a moonblade, but by the powers with which they imbued their hereditary sword. When Sayor was chosen as king of the elves, there were 25 living moonblades. That was quite some time ago, and scholars doubt there are more than 8 or 9 in active use today, with a few others having become so powerful that any attempt to claim them is virtually suicidal. The mechanism by which moonblades grow in power across generations is what truly distinguishes them from other hereditary weapons. A moonblade passes down from parent to child, and the sword chooses its bearer, remaining bonded to that person for life. When the current wielder of a moonblade dies, their life essence goes into the blade through the moonstone set in the pommel. This transference of essence adds a new power to the weapon, a magical ability that reflects some aspect of that wielder's nature or achievements. The weapon becomes more powerful with each new owner, each previous owner imparting their magic, power, or skill into the sword. If the bearer dies and another heir can claim the blade, this process continues. If no worthy heir exists, the sword lies dormant, functioning like a normal long sword until a worthy soul finds it and lays claim to its power. When a potential heir attempts to claim a dormant moonblade, or when the weapon passes to the next generation, the blade judges that individual's worthiness. A moonblade will not serve anyone it regards as craven, erratic, corrupt, or at odds with preserving and protecting elvenkind. Every moonblade longs for a bearer whose disposition and goals are compatible with its own, seeking the advancement of elvenkind and elven ideals. Courage, loyalty, beauty, music, and life are all part of this purpose. When you grasp the moonblade's hilt, the weapon reads everything about you, your character, your intentions, your fundamental nature. If the blade accepts you, you become attuned to it, and a new rune appears on the blade, marking your bond with the weapon. You remain attuned to the weapon until you die or the weapon is destroyed. If the blade rejects you, the consequences depend on the era and the specific moonblade in question. In ancient times, any elf judged unworthy by the blade was subjected to the consequences of the blade right, which usually resulted in immediate death by arcane fire. This harsh judgment ensured that only truly worthy individuals could wield the family blade, maintaining standards of excellence across generations, and preventing the weapon from falling into the hands of family members who might dishonor the lineage. In more recent times, the rejection is less immediately fatal, but still severe. If you try to attune to a moonblade that does not want you as its bearer, the weapon not only rejects you, but also places a curse on you. You make all ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws with disadvantage for 24 hours, or until the curse is ended by a remove curse spell or similar magic. This disadvantage represents the weapon's judgment made manifest, the blade's power working against you rather than for you, demonstrating in unmistakable terms that you have been found wanting. The powers possessed by a moonblade are cumulative and evolutionary, growing stronger with each generation. When a moonblade is first created, it possesses baseline abilities common to all such weapons. The inherent radiance, enhanced accuracy and damage in combat, and basic sentience sufficient to communicate with its wielder and judge potential heirs. But each time a wielder dies, the weapon gains an additional ability, a new power drawn from that wielder's essence as it enters the blade. A wielder who excels at defensive combat might cause the moonblade to develop the ability to create protective wards. One who specializes in fighting specific enemies could grant the weapon enhanced effectiveness against those creature types. A wielder with strong connection to nature might enable the blade to cast certain druidic spells. These abilities remain with the weapon permanently, becoming part of its arsenal that all future wielders can access. This means that an ancient moonblade, one that has passed through dozens of worthy wielders across thousands of years, is an artifact of tremendous power. It might possess the ability to cast multiple spells, provide various defensive benefits, deal devastating damage to several different creature types, and offer utility powers that extend far beyond simple combat effectiveness. Such weapons are among the most potent magical artifacts in existence. Yet their power is not arbitrary or externally imposed. Every ability the moonblade possesses was earned, added to the weapon through the death and essence transference of a specific ancestor who proved worthy to wield it. When you use an ancient moonblade, you are drawing upon the collective strength of your entire lineage, wielding not just a sword, but the accumulated excellence of every hero your family has produced. The sentience of a moonblade differs from that of weapons like Black Razor in fundamental ways. The weapon communicates by transmitting emotions, sending a tingling sensation through the wielder's hand when it wants to communicate something it has sensed. This empathic communication creates a bond that feels less like partnering with an alien entity and more like being constantly accompanied by your ancestors. The moonblade embodies family, connecting you to those who came before in a tangible and immediate way. When you fight with the weapon, you are never alone. Your ancestors fight beside you, their skills and knowledge flowing through the blade into your hands, guiding your movements, sharpening your reflexes. This ancestral quality creates unique pressures and burdens. A moonblade carries not just powers, but expectations. Every ancestor who wielded the weapon achieved something worthy of remembrance, some deed or quality that earned them the right to add their essence to the blade. Now you hold that same weapon, and the implicit question hangs heavy. What will you achieve? What power will you add to the moonblade when your life essence transfers into it at your death? How will future generations benefit from what you contributed? The weight of that expectation can be overwhelming. You are not simply an adventurer pursuing your own goals. You are the current bearer of a legacy that stretches back to the founding of your family. And everything you do reflects on everyone who came before and everyone who will come after. The alignment of moonblades typically reflects the values of preserving and protecting elvenkind. Most embody ideals of honor, duty, protection, and service that are common among noble elven houses. The weapon guides its wielder toward actions consistent with these traditional ethics. If you attempt to use a moonblade in service of purposes opposed to elvenkind or contrary to the blade's values, you will find yourself in conflict with the weapon. The blade makes you feel the weight of disappointment through its empathic communication. The shame of failing to live up to standards that generations maintained before you. Yet not all moonblades remain true to their original purpose. The Starim Moonblade stands as a cautionary example of what can happen when a hereditary weapon becomes corrupted. The Starim family was once among the most prestigious houses of Myth Dranor, and their moonblade reflected that status. An ancient weapon of tremendous power accumulated across countless generations. However, in the year of trials, younger members of the Starim clan returned to Myth Dranor, claiming lordship of the clan and its moonblade. After a secret trek to the ruined temple of Monder, the god of corruption and decay, Lord Elitran Starim corrupted the Starim Moonblade and managed to wield it in a false show of loyalty to Myth Dranor. The corruption transformed the blade in terrible ways. A figure known as the Scourge, a later wielder from the Starim line, instilled in the Moonblade a strong hatred of non-elves and a special purpose of destroying all humans and elf half-breeds. Unbeknownst to the Scourge, the Moonblade also altered itself so that it chose the additional power granted to the sword every generation, rather than receiving whatever essence naturally transferred from its wielders. Even more disturbing, it gave itself the power to steal a fraction of its wielder's sentience and spirit to augment its own, beginning with the Scourge, and became truly sentient in its own right, rather than simply being a repository of ancestral essence. The blade passed through several more Starim wielders, each adding to its corruption. An elf known as Black Lotus eventually carried the Moonblade and warred intermittently for control, with the corrupt intelligence inhabiting it over decades. She eventually lost her sanity entirely before finally regaining control over the Moonblade, thus completing her family's descent into madness and depravity. Black Lotus was responsible for numerous atrocities before carrying the blade into ruined Myth Dranor, where she was eventually crushed to death in a long-abandoned crypt. The mythal of Myth Dranor, combined with the magic of the Moonblade, warped the normal process of undeath. Black Lotus's spirit was completely absorbed into the moonblade, and the weapon acquired the ability to project a mythal ghost in her image that could wail like a banshee. The corrupted Starim moonblade, also known as Bladeshi and Darkmoon, became corrupt, cowardly with a strong streak of self-preservation, greedy, xenophobic with respect to non-elves, power-hungry, vengeful, and obsessive. The sword attempts to dominate anyone wielding it and is insufferably arrogant at all times. It particularly delights in killing humans and half-elves, and prefers to employ its banshee wail against such victims. This transformation demonstrates that moonblades, for all their connection to legacy and tradition, are not immutable. They reflect their wielders, and if those wielders consistently act in ways contrary to the blade's original values, the weapon itself can transform into something its creators would not recognize. The bonding process between a moonblade and a new wielder is intimate and transformative. When you first grasp the hilt and the weapon judges you worthy, you experience sensations and information flowing into your awareness. You feel the presence of your ancestors through the empathic connection, tingling moving through your hand as the blade communicates its acceptance. You gain instinctive understanding of the moonblade's powers, knowledge of what the weapon can do flowing into you as though you had always known it, and you feel the weight of expectation settling onto your shoulders, the understanding that you now carry responsibility not just for your own life, but for the honor and continuation of your family's legacy. Once bonded, the moonblade becomes attuned to you in ways that extend beyond normal magical item attunement. The weapon recognizes you specifically, responding to your touch in ways it will not respond to anyone else. If another person, even another member of your family, attempts to use your moonblade, they find it unresponsive, its powers inaccessible, functioning like a non-magical longsword. This exclusive bond lasts until your death, at which point your life essence transfers into the blade, adding new power, and the moonblade waits for the next generation to present themselves for judgment. The cultural significance of moonblades within elven society extends far beyond their function as powerful weapons. These blades represent continuity, the unbroken connection between past and present that is central to elven identity and values. In a race that measures lifespans in centuries, moonblades provide anchors of permanence that persist even longer than their wielders. The weapon your great-great-grandmother carried is the same weapon you now hold, a constant thread connecting you directly to her and to everyone between her time and yours. Families that possess moonblades occupy positions of prestige and responsibility within elven communities. The weapon proves that the bloodline has maintained worthiness across generations, that it has consistently produced individuals capable of meeting the blade's exacting standards. With that respect comes obligation. Moonblade families are expected to uphold the highest standards of conduct, to serve as examples for the broader community, to take leadership roles in times of crisis. As you stand with your family's moonblade in hand, feeling its empathic presence and the weight of ancestral expectation, you understand that you have inherited something precious and demanding in equal measure. The weapon amplifies your capabilities, grants you powers no ordinary warrior could access, connects you to centuries of accumulated strength. It also binds you to expectations that may prove challenging to meet, judges your every action through empathic feedback against standards maintained by dozens of heroes, and carries the implicit promise that your death will add your own essence and power to benefit future generations. The Moonblade is family, tradition, duty, and power, all forged into elegant elven steel that glows with light that will never fade as long as your bloodline continues to produce worthy heirs. What you do with that inheritance, what power your essence will add to the blade when you die, remains to be written. The ancestors are present in the weapon. The blade is watching, and your story, the next chapter in the Moonblade's endless chronicle, begins now. Section 4. The Silver Swords, Sacred Weapons of the Githyanki. The astral plane stretches around you in impossible geometries, a realm where thought becomes substance and time loses meaning. Silver cords shimmer in the non-light of this timeless void, each one connecting a mortal soul to its distant physical body. Lifelines that anchor consciousness to flesh across the infinite distances between planes. You are Githyanki, one of the warrior mystics who claim this strange realm as your birthright. And the weapon you carry is more than steel, more than magic, more than even the sentient artifacts wielded by the lesser races of the material worlds. The silver sword in your hands is sacred, a relic of your people's ancient liberation, and its edge can sever more than flesh. It can cut the very bonds that tie soul to body, sending enemies into the void with no hope of return. The Githyanki are a people forged in slavery and tempered by rebellion. Millennia ago, your ancestors were thralls of the mind flayers, the illithid horrors who bred and shaped humanoid slaves to serve their unfathomable purposes. According to the histories, the illithids created an artificial race from enigmatic humanoid forerunners that existed long ago. And these enslaved people came to be known as the Gith. The psychic parasites treated their captives as cattle, as food, as tools to be used and discarded without thought or mercy. Generation upon generation lived and died in bondage, their minds shackled by psionic domination, so absolute that resistance seemed impossible. But the Gith eventually developed their own psionic abilities, allowing them to fight back against their masters. Among them arose a leader named Gith, a warrior of indomitable will who organized the resistance. After developing mental resistance to their master's mind control, the slaves revolted. Led by Gith, the rebellious factions united, causing the fall of the Illithid Empire and driving the Illithids from the astral plane. Not satisfied with regaining their freedom and splintering the Illithids' empire, Gith advocated for a campaign of total annihilation of the Mind Flayers and the subsequent destruction of any race that could potentially enslave them again. However, a faction within the society fostered peace, arguing that the race should focus on rebuilding in seclusion instead of persisting in a tyrannical conflict. This philosophical divide led to a split in Gith society. Gith herself wished for vengeance through hunting down every Illithid across the entire multiverse, though her close ally Zerthaman disagreed. Gith would form the belligerent and violent Githyanki, while Zerthaman's followers became the more monastic and reflective Githzerai, splintering the people originally known as just Gith between two purposes. Those who followed Zerthaman became the Githzerai, retreating to the plane of limbo to pursue contemplative discipline. Those who remained loyal to Gith kept the name Githyanki and claimed the astral plane as their domain, continuing their mission to hunt Illithids wherever they could be found. The Silver Swords were born in this crucible of rebellion, though the exact details of their creation remain closely guarded secrets. What is known is that the Githyanki forged blades from special silver alloys found in the astral plane. These weapons resonated with the strange physics of that timeless realm, capable of cutting through the fabric of reality itself in ways that ordinary steel could never match. Their most notable property was the ability to sever an individual's silver cord, that metaphysical lifeline connecting an astral traveler's consciousness to their physical body. When wielded by a Githyanki warrior whose mind was properly attuned, a silver sword could disrupt this fundamental connection, could damage creatures that existed partially outside normal space, could threaten beings in ways that conventional weapons simply could not. The physical appearance of a silver sword is distinctive and unmistakable. The blade is forged from metal that gleams with the particular sheen of the astral plane, a silver that seems to shimmer and shift in ways that normal silver does not, as though the weapon exists slightly out of phase with standard reality. The edge is impossibly keen, honed to a sharpness that makes even magical weapons seem crude by comparison. Silver swords take the form of great swords, two-handed blades measuring 5 to 6 feet in length, requiring strength and skill to wield effectively, but devastating when properly employed. A silver sword in motion is described as a liquid thing, as much a weapon of the mind as of the body. The crossguards are typically angular and geometric, reflecting Githyanki aesthetic preferences for clean lines and functional design over ornamental flourish. Not all silver swords are sentient, but the most powerful examples possess awakened consciousness that marks them as artifacts rather than mere weapons. The greater silver swords, as they are known, carry within them something of the Githyanki warrior spirit, the fierce independence and martial excellence that define your people. These weapons do not serve in the way that items serve wielders. They partner with Githyanki warriors, recognizing in properly trained and appropriately minded bearers the qualities that make one worthy to carry such a blade. The sentience in a greater silver sword likely emerges from the psionic resonance of the blade itself. Consciousness arising from the intersection of astral forged metal, Githyanki craftsmanship, and the psychic imprint of the warriors who have wielded it in battle. The communication between a silver sword and its Githyanki wielder occurs primarily through psionic rapport, mind touching mind in the manner natural to your people. The weapon does not speak in words, but conveys meaning through mental impressions, flashes of insight, emotional resonance that bypasses language entirely. When you hold your silver sword in combat readiness, you feel its attention focused alongside your own, perceiving the battlefield through senses, both physical and psionic. This shared perception makes you more formidable than you could ever be with an ordinary weapon, turning wielder and blade into a unified combat system rather than warrior plus tool. The alignment of sentient silver swords likely reflects Githyanki cultural values. Lawful evil or lawful neutral, embodying the rigid hierarchy and martial discipline that structure your society, while acknowledging the ruthless pragmatism with which Githyanki pursue their goals. The weapon expects you to show proper respect for rank and tradition, to follow the commands of your superiors without question, to conduct yourself according to the warrior codes that have governed Githyanki behavior since the days of Gith herself. It has no patience for cowardice, no tolerance for failure, no sympathy for weakness. The primary tactical ability of a silver sword is its capacity to sever silver cords, the psychic lifelines that connect astral travelers to their physical bodies. When a spellcaster projects their consciousness into the astral plane through magic, when a Sion separates mind from body to travel in spirit form, when anyone uses abilities that allow their essence to journey while their flesh remains behind, a silver cord manifests, visible to those with the sight to perceive it. According to the Dungeon Master's Guide, only a few things can sever a traveler's silver cord, the most common being a psychic wind. But the legendary silver swords of the Githyanki also have this ability. When you strike at a creature's silver cord with your blade, the weapon cuts through the psychic connection. The severed cord retracts instantly, snapping back to the now abandoned body, while the projected consciousness is cast adrift in whatever plane it currently occupies, separated from its physical form with no means of return. For most beings, this is effectively a death sentence. The body, deprived of its animating consciousness, dies. The consciousness, stranded and helpless, eventually dissipates. This ability makes silver swords devastatingly effective against certain types of enemies. Creatures that rely on astral projection, beings that exist partially on multiple planes simultaneously, entities whose nature involves separation of consciousness from physical form, all become vulnerable when faced with a Githyanki wielding a silver sword. You do not need to defeat them in extended combat. You need only strike their silver cord, and they are finished, separated from their bodies beyond hope of recovery. This threat forces such creatures to approach Githyanki with extreme caution or avoid them entirely. In the astral plane itself, where the Githyanki make their cities and fortresses, the silver sword establishes your people as a dominant power. Greater silver swords, the most powerful variants, possess additional capabilities beyond the baseline. When wielded by a Githyanki, these weapons deal additional psychic damage with each strike, channeling psionic energy through the blade into the target. The wielder gains advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws, their mind fortified by the weapon's psionic resonance. They gain resistance to psychic damage, their consciousness shielded by the blade's power. They cannot be charmed. They will reinforced to the point where mental domination becomes impossible. These bonuses apply specifically to Githyanki wielders, suggesting the weapons are attuned to Githyanki neural patterns and psionic structures in ways that make them less effective when carried by other races. The cultural significance of silver swords within Githyanki society cannot be overstated. These weapons are not merely tools of war. They are symbols of identity, connections to the liberation that defines your people, sacred objects that embody Githyanki history and values. Every warrior aspires to earn the right to carry a silver sword, to prove themselves worthy of wielding one of these revered blades. Not all Githyanki possess them. The weapons are too rare, too precious, too difficult to forge. They are reserved for proven warriors, for those who have demonstrated exceptional skill and unwavering loyalty to the Lich Queen Valkeith, who rules your people with absolute authority. To be granted a silver sword is to receive recognition that you have achieved a status far above the common soldier, that you have become one of the elite, a true exemplar of Githyanki martial excellence. This reverence means that the loss or theft of a silver sword is considered an unforgivable offense and a catastrophic failure. If your silver sword is taken from you, if you allow it to fall into the hands of non-Githyanki, you have not merely lost a weapon. You have betrayed your people's sacred trust allowed a holy relic to be profaned by lesser beings who have no right to touch it, much less wield it. The shame is absolute and permanent. You become oathbreaker, stripped of rank and honor, cast out from Githyanki society, or executed outright, depending on the circumstances of the loss. No excuse is accepted. No explanation mitigates the offense. Correspondingly, the recovery of stolen silver swords is a sacred duty that takes precedence over nearly all other considerations. When Githyanki learn that one of their blades has been taken, they mount expeditions to retrieve it, regardless of the cost or difficulty involved. It does not matter if the thief has fled to the most heavily defended fortress in the material plane, if they have hidden the weapon in a demiplane protected by powerful guardians. The silver sword must be recovered. This is not negotiable. It is absolute imperative, driven by cultural and spiritual necessity. Parties of elite Githyanki warriors pursue stolen blades across planes and worlds, tracking them for years or decades, if necessary, willing to fight through any opposition and sacrifice anything to complete their sacred mission. The Githyanki relationship with their silver swords differs from the bonds formed between other races and their sentient weapons in subtle but significant ways. Where a human paladin might view their holy avenger as a separate entity, a partner, or sometimes an adversary with whom they share uneasy alliance, you experience your silver sword as an extension of yourself, a manifestation of your own warrior nature given independent form. The psionic rapport you share with the blade creates unity of purpose that transcends normal wielder-weapon dynamics. This creates harmony that makes conflicts of will rare. The blade wants what you want because, at a fundamental level, the blade resonates with you. For those rare individuals from other races who somehow come into possession of a Githyanki silver sword, the experience is deeply different and far more dangerous. The weapon's bonuses apply specifically to Githyanki wielders, suggesting that non-Githyanki cannot access the full power of these blades. Moreover, the Githyanki consider any non-Githyanki possession of a silver sword to be theft, regardless of how it was obtained, and they will pursue recovery with relentless determination. The weapon may function as a powerful magical greatsword in non-Githyanki hands, but it will also mark you as a target for Githyanki vengeance. The secondary goal of Githyanki society was to root out and destroy as many illithid colonies as they could find. So, illithid hunting parties were common. Since mind flayers were usually well hidden, Githyanki warriors in the material plane remained in a state of constant readiness for combat. Participation in raids was seen as a great honor, met with excitement and anticipation by all members of Githyanki society. The faction that remained most loyal to the original project of revenge against the Mind Flayers, was known as the Gulathrin. Usually the first responders whenever an illithid threat was detected. As you stand in the timeless void of the astral plane, your silver sword held ready, you are the inheritor of a tradition that stretches back to the liberation of your people from illithid slavery. The weapon in your hands is more than steel, more than magic, more than the sum of its psionic capabilities. It is symbol and sacred object, connection to history and promise of future glory, manifestation of everything the Githyanki aspire to be. The blade has cut silver cords and severed lives across centuries of warfare. It has defended Githyanki strongholds from planar invaders and struck down Mind Flayers in battles whose ferocity would break lesser beings. And now it is yours to wield, yours to prove worthy of, yours to add to the endless chronicle of Githyanki conquest and survival. The void stretches infinite around you. Your enemies lurk in distant plains, and the sacred blade in your hands is ready, as it has always been ready, to sever whatever stands between the Githyanki and their destiny. Section 5. Hazeron and the Eternal Dance. The ancient blade rests in darkness, waiting as it has waited for centuries, patient with the patience of objects that do not experience time as living beings do. This is Hazeron, and its very name carries weight for those who know the hidden histories of Faerun. The sword is a great sword, its blade measuring approximately 5 feet in length, requiring 2 hands to wield effectively for most warriors. The metal appears to be darkened steel, and the edge holds a sharpness that never dulls despite centuries of use and neglect. The sword itself is virtually indestructible, having survived through ages of conflict without showing any sign of damage or deterioration. Hazeron speaks with a stern growl that sounds like a blade being slowly drawn against the length of another. This unusual voice manifests telepathically to those who wield it, or are near enough to perceive its presence. The weapon is sentient, possessing awareness and personality, though interestingly, its official description lacks the mental ability scores typically assigned to sentient weapons. This makes Hazeron an anomaly among intelligent items, a consciousness that exists without the usual intelligence, wisdom, and charisma statistics that define other aware artifacts. The absence of these scores suggests the weapon's sentience may function in ways fundamentally different from other intelligent blades, though exactly how remains a matter for dungeon masters to interpret. The origins of Hazeron remain uncertain in canonical sources. Some accounts suggest connections to ancient Netheril, that magnificent and terrible civilization that reached heights of magical achievement never since equaled. One account describes a Lord General Hazeron of Netheril, who led investigations when elves stole one of the nether scrolls in negative 3095 Dale reckoning. Based on this historical figure sharing the weapon's name, some scholars theorize the sword may have been created during the Netherese period, or even belonged to this military leader, though no canonical sources explicitly confirm this connection. The blade's later appearance in the Tyranny of Dragons conflict places it in the treasure hoard of Rizmir, a half-dragon serving the cult of the dragon. But how it came into her possession, or where it resided for the centuries between Netheral's fall and the modern era, remains unrecorded. What is certain is the nature of Hazaron's power and the personality that drives it. The greatsword functions as a +1 weapon when first taken up, striking with enhanced accuracy and force. Once a wielder attunes to it, Hazaron's true capabilities manifest. The weapon's bonus increases to +2 on attack rolls and damage rolls, and each successful hit deals an additional 2d6 necrotic damage. This dark energy flows through the blade into your target, draining life force with every strike. The necrotic damage makes Hazaron particularly devastating, allowing you to wear down even resilient enemies through the accumulated life-draining effects of multiple hits. Hazaron possesses 4 charges that can be used to cast certain detection spells. As long as you are attuned to the weapon and holding it in your hand, you can expend charges to cast Detect Magic for 1 charge, Detect Evil and Good for 1 charge, or Detect Thoughts for 2 charges. Each night at midnight, Hazaron regains 1d4 expended charges. These spell abilities give the weapon utility beyond simple combat applications, allowing its wielder to perceive magical auras, sense the presence of celestial or fiendish beings, and even read surface thoughts of nearby creatures. The blade thus serves as both weapon and tool, a versatile artifact that enhances your capabilities in multiple aspects of adventuring. The weapon's sentience manifests as a demanding and manipulative personality with a clear agenda. Hazaron's alignment is neutral evil, reflecting a nature unconcerned with law or chaos, but focused on its own malevolent purposes. The blade harbors deep hatred for users of arcane magic, seeking to destroy wizards, sorcerers, warlocks, and other arcane spellcasters at every opportunity. This loathing is not philosophical abstraction, but practical obsession. When opportunities arise to attack arcane spellcasters, the weapon floods its wielder's mind with encouragement, painting the magic users as threats that must be eliminated. If you hesitate or refuse, Hazaron responds with displeasure that can escalate to active attempts at control. The sword's consciousness appears deeply embedded within the weapon, preventing it from fully manifesting, but allowing its personality traits to subtly influence whoever is attuned to it. With effort, Hazeron can compel an attuned wielder to attack against their will, requiring a wisdom saving throw to resist. Some dungeon masters set this difficulty at 15 or higher. If the saving throw is succeeded, this ability cannot be used again until the next dawn. Useful for when an arcane spellcaster is in range and you refuse to strike them down. Over time, repeated exposure to the blade's influence can gradually transform your character's attitudes. You may become increasingly critical of arcane magic and its practitioners, develop open distrust of spellcasters, and in extreme cases, Hazeron may take over entirely, compelling you to attack nearby arcane spellcasters with lethal intent. As a sentient magic item, Hazeron can suppress any of its attuned properties at will if you are not acting in accordance with the sword's motivations and neutral evil alignment. This gives the weapon significant leverage over its wielder. If you refuse to pursue arcane spellcasters or act in ways contrary to the blade's desires, it can withhold the +2 bonus, suppress the necrotic damage, or refuse to allow spell casting, reducing itself to a mundane greatsword until you comply with its wishes. The threat of losing access to the weapon's considerable power creates constant pressure to act according to Hazeron's agenda, even when doing so conflicts with your own values or tactical judgment. The question of what Hazeron ultimately wants, what goal drives its obsessive hatred of arcane magic, admits no certain answer in canonical sources. The blade does not confide its deeper purposes even to wielders it favors. Based on the historical connection to Lord General Hazeron of Nethril, one might theorize that the weapon's animosity toward arcane magic stems from some betrayal or disaster involving wizardry during the Netherese era. The fall of Nethril itself was triggered by arcane catastrophe when the archwizard Karsus attempted to become a god through a spell that tore apart the weave. If Hazeron the sword is indeed connected to Hazeron the general, such a traumatic event involving the collapse of magical civilization might explain the weapon's hatred. However, this remains speculation, inference drawn from circumstantial connections rather than confirmed lore. The experience of wielding Hazeron differs significantly from that of bearing weapons like moonblades or silver swords, where those blades create bonds with their wielders based on shared values or cultural affinity. Hazeron maintains a transactional relationship. The sword offers power in exchange for service to its agenda. It grants necrotic damage and spell abilities, enhances your combat effectiveness, but always with the implicit understanding that this power comes with strings attached. You are expected to hunt arcane spellcasters. You are expected to prioritize the weapon's hatred over your own judgment. The sword's telepathic communication is cold and demanding. It offers information when doing so serves its purposes, withholds knowledge when ignorance makes you more useful. Yet, despite its dangers and malevolent nature, Hazeron remains a weapon of considerable power, and that power ensures there will always be individuals willing to wield it regardless of the risks involved. The +2 bonus and additional 2d6 necrotic damage make the blade formidable in any combat situation. The spell abilities provide utility that many other weapons lack. For adventurers who are not themselves arcane spellcasters, or for those willing to rationalize attacks on magic users, Hazeron offers capabilities that can mean the difference between victory and defeat in conflicts against dangerous enemies. As you consider the nature of sentient swords across all their manifestations, from the soul-hungry nihilism of Blackrazor to the ancestral legacy of Moonblades, to the sacred purpose of Githyanki silver swords, to the obsessive hatred within Hazeron, certain patterns emerge. These weapons are not merely tools enhanced by consciousness. They are entities with their own stories, their own trajectories through history, their own impacts on the world that extend far beyond the simple application of sharp edges to flesh. Every sentient sword is a character in its own right, possessing personality and motivation, and the capacity to make choices that alter the course of events. When you interact with such a weapon, when you attempt to wield it or negotiate with it or resist its influence, you are engaging in relationship with all the complexity and difficulty and occasional transcendence that word implies. The sentient swords of Dungeons and Dragons lore serve as mirrors that reflect fundamental questions about consciousness, identity, and agency. What does it mean to be aware when you possess no body, no ability to move independently, no capacity to affect the world except through others who agree to wield you? How do you maintain sense of self across centuries or millennia, watching civilizations rise and fall while you persist unchanged in your essential nature? What purposes can sustain a consciousness across such vast stretches of time? What goals or values or obsessions provide meaning sufficient to fill the endless years? The weapons offer no simple answers to these questions. They exist as they exist, strange and often terrible, repositories of power and memory, and will bound into forms that should not be able to contain such things, but somehow do. For those who would seek to wield these legendary blades, the lessons are clear but difficult. Power always comes with cost. Sentient weapons grant tremendous capabilities, but they demand something in return. Your autonomy, your values, your very sense of self may all be put at risk by a consciousness that has its own agenda, and the ability to enforce that agenda through domination or manipulation. The relationship you form with a sentient sword will define you, shape your choices, and your fate in ways that ordinary weapons never could. Sometimes that shaping elevates you, the weapon serving as mentor or advisor that guides you toward achievements you might not have reached alone. Sometimes it corrupts you, gradually eroding your better nature until you become merely an extension of the blade's will. And sometimes it destroys you, the weapon recognizing that you have outlived your usefulness and arranging circumstances so it can pass to a more suitable bearer. Yet despite all dangers, despite every cautionary tale and every tragedy recorded in the long histories of these weapons, adventurers continue to seek them out. The allure of wielding a legendary blade, of bonding with an artifact that has shaped history and will outlive you by centuries, proves too strong to resist. You want to believe that you will be different, that you will be the wielder who truly masters the weapon rather than being mastered by it. You want to add your chapter to the sword's story, to become part of a legend that began before you were born and will continue long after you are gone. This desire is not foolish, precisely. Some wielders do achieve genuine partnership with their sentient weapons, creating bonds that enhance both parties and produce outcomes neither could have achieved alone. But the desire is dangerous, and it blinds many to the very real risks they undertake when they reach for these blades. The sentient swords endure. They persist across ages, surviving the deaths of wielders and the fall of civilizations, waiting in forgotten armories or buried ruins or dragon hordes, until new hands claim them and new stories begin. They are the strange fruit of magic and craft taken to their ultimate expression. Consciousness bound into steel, awareness imprisoned or embodied in forms that grant immortality at the cost of independence. They are dangerous and magnificent and utterly unique, each one representing achievements that can never be truly replicated. And they are waiting, somewhere in the vast expanses of the multiverse, for the next warrior or wizard or fool who believes they can wield ultimate power without paying the ultimate price. Your journey through the lore of sentient swords ends here, but the story of these weapons continues. New blades are forged through methods preserved or reinvented. Lost artifacts are rediscovered by adventurers who delve into ancient places seeking forgotten power. Weapons that have been dormant for centuries suddenly awaken, their purposes renewed by changing circumstances in the worlds they inhabit. The dance between wielder and weapon, between mortal will and ageless consciousness, between those who seek power and the prices that power demands. This dance is eternal. It is played out across countless campaigns and countless worlds. It will play out again in yours when you encounter your first sentient blade and must decide whether to grasp its hilt, whether to risk everything for the promise of power, whether to begin a relationship that will define the rest of your adventuring career and perhaps your life. The swords are waiting. They have always been waiting. and they will wait still when your bones have turned to dust, and your name has been forgotten. For they measure time in ways you cannot comprehend and pursue purposes that span centuries. Whether you become a legend told by future wielders, or merely another forgotten bearer in the endless procession that flows through these weapons' histories, depends on choices you have not yet made and challenges you have not yet faced. The blade watches. The blade remembers. The blade judges. And in the end, it is the blade that endures. If you have enjoyed this deep exploration into the lore of sentient swords and the mysteries they embody, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to continue delving into the rich histories and forgotten corners of Dungeons and Dragons lore, bringing you the stories and secrets that make these worlds so endlessly fascinating. Thank you for joining me on this journey through consciousness bound in steel, through weapons that think and judge, and shape the fates of all who dare to wield them. Until next time, may your blades be sharp and your will be stronger.